Long before the rise of modern cities, before towering skyscrapers and electric lights, there was a river that quietly shaped one of the greatest civilizations in human history. Every year, that river would rise, slowly spilling across the land, covering the dry earth with dark, fertile soil. And when the waters finally retreated, something incredible happened. Life appeared in the middle of the desert. Fields turned green, villages came alive. Boats drifted gently across calm waters, and a powerful civilization began to grow along the banks of the Nile River. This was the beginning of ancient Egypt. For thousands of years, the people of Egypt lived in a world where the rhythm of life was controlled by the river. The Nile was not just water, it was food, it was travel, it was survival. Without it, the land around them would have been nothing more than endless desert. But along its banks, a remarkable society slowly formed. Farmers planted crops in the rich soil. Craftsmen built tools and beautiful objects. Priests spoke to the gods inside massive temples. And powerful rulers known as pharaohs commanded the construction of monuments so enormous that they still stand today. Yet, despite the grandeur of pyramids and temples, most Egyptians lived very simple lives. They woke early in the morning. They worked under the hot sun. They raised families in small mud brick homes. Their days followed the quiet rhythm of nature, and every sunrise along the Nile brought another chapter in the long story of Egypt. A village by the river. Imagine standing beside the Nile more than 4,000 years ago. The sun is just beginning to rise above the horizon. The sky glows with soft orange light. Palm trees sway gently in the morning breeze. Nearby, a small village slowly begins to wake. Most homes are built from mud bricks made from clay and straw. The houses are simple but practical. Their thick walls help keep the intense desert heat outside. Inside one of these homes, a farmer rises from his bed. He steps outside and looks toward the river. This is where his entire life takes place. The Nile determines when he plants his crops. It determines when he harvests them. And sometimes it determines whether his family will have enough food for the year. Because in ancient Egypt, the flooding of the Nile was everything. Every year during the summer months, water from distant lanes far to the south caused the river to rise. The floodwaters spread across the land, covering the fields. To outsiders, it might have looked like a disaster. But to the people of Egypt, the flood was a gift. When the waters slowly receded, they left behind dark black soil rich with nutrients. This soil was perfect for growing wheat and barley. Without it, farming in the desert would have been impossible. The rhythm of daily life. As the morning continues, more villagers step outside their homes. Children run through the narrow paths between houses. Women begin grinding grain to make bread. The sound of stone grinding against rain fills the air. Bread was the most important food in ancient Egypt. Almost every meal included it. Along with bread, people often ate onions, dates, fish, and vegetables grown near the river. A short distance away, fishermen prepare their boats. These boats are long and narrow, often made from bundles of papyrus reeds tied together. The fishermen push the boats into the calm water and begin casting their nets. Fish from the Nile were a major source of food for many families. At the same time, farmers begin walking toward the fields carrying simple wooden tools. Their work will last for many hours under the blazing Egyptian sun. Life in ancient Egypt was not easy, but it was steady, predictable, and deeply connected to the land and the river. A kingdom begins to rise while ordinary people worked in villages along the Nile. Something much larger was happening across Egypt. Small farming communities were slowly growing into organized cities. Leaders began to appear. Over time, these leaders gained power and influence. Eventually, the land of Egypt became united under a single ruler known as a pharaoh. One of the earliest rulers believed to unite Egypt was Nama. Under the rule of powerful pharaohs, Egypt began transforming into a powerful kingdom. Massive temples were built to honor the gods. Large cities formed along the Nile, and Egyptian culture grew stronger and more complex with each generation. But perhaps the most famous achievements of this civilization would appear centuries later. Gigantic structures made from millions of stone blocks. Monuments that would challenge the imagination of people thousands of years in the future. The pyramids. Among them, the most famous of all is the Great Pyramid of Giza. But long before these monumental structures were built, the story of ancient Egypt began in quiet villages like the one beside the river, where farmers woke with the sunrise, where children played beside the water, and where the gentle flow of the Nile quietly shaped one of the most remarkable civilizations in human history. As the sun slowly rises higher above the horizon, the village along the Nile begins to fill with life. The cool air of the early morning slowly fades as warmth spreads across the land. Farmers move steadily toward the fields, carrying simple wooden tools over their shoulders. These tools are basic, often made from wood and stone, but they are enough for the work that must be done. Life in ancient Egypt depended almost entirely on farming. Every family understood that their survival depended on the crops they could grow beside the river. The dark soil left behind after the flooding season was perfect for planting wheat and barley. These grains were the foundation of the Egyptian diet. From them, people made bread, one of the most important foods in daily life. In small courtyards beside their homes, women began grinding grain between heavy stones. The slow, rhythmic sound of stone against grain fills the air as flour is prepared for baking. Nearby, clay ovens are already warm. The smell of fresh bread slowly spreads through the village as families prepare their first meal of the day. Children run between the houses, laughing and playing, while the adults focus on their daily responsibilities. For many people, the morning also means work on the river. The great Nile River flows calmly beside the village, its waters reflecting the brightening sky. Fishermen carefully push their narrow boats into the river. These boats are often made from papyrus reeds, tightly tied together. They are light and flexible, perfect for moving along the gentle current of the river. Using simple nets and wooden spears, fishermen search for fish beneath the surface of the water. Fish from the Nile provide an important source of food for many families, and the river never stops providing for the people who depend on it. But fishing is not the only activity happening along the river. The Nile also acts as the main road of ancient Egypt. Long wooden boats slowly travel along the water, carrying goods from one village to another. Some boats transport grain harvested from distant fields, while others carry stone, pottery, and tools created by skilled craftsmen. Merchants often travel by boat as well, bringing items that cannot be produced locally. In this way, the river connects villages and cities across the land of Egypt. Without the Nile, travel across the desert would have been nearly impossible. As the day continues, the farmers finally reach their fields. These fields stretch across the flat land beside the river, divided into sections carefully planned to make the most of the fertile soil. Some farmers guide wooden plows pulled by strong oxen. Others walk slowly through the fields, planting seeds by hand. The work is slow and demanding. The sun climbs higher into the sky, and the heat becomes stronger with every passing hour. But the farmers continue their work, knowing that the success of the harvest will determine the future of their families. Back in the village, craftsmen begin opening their small workshops. Ancient Egypt was home to many skilled workers who created objects used in everyday life. Potters shape wet clay into bowls and jars that will later be hardened in hot ovens. Carpenters carve wood into furniture, tools, and parts for boats. Metal workers carefully heat copper and shape it into knives, farming tools, and decorative objects. Every craft plays an important role in supporting the life of the community. Even though the pyramids and temples of Egypt were grand and impressive, the true strength of the civilization came from ordinary people doing ordinary work every single day. From the farmers working beneath the hot sun, to the fishermen guiding their boats along the quiet river, to the craftsmen patiently shaping tools and pottery, each person helped build the world of ancient Egypt piece by piece. And as the sun slowly begins to move toward the center of the sky, the long and busy day in the land of the pharaohs continues. As the long morning slowly turns into midday, the heat of the Egyptian sun begins to dominate the land. The bright sky above the Nile becomes almost blinding, and the air grows heavy with warmth. Farmers pause for a moment to drink water and wipe the sweat from their faces before returning to their work. Life beside the Nile has always required patience and endurance. The people of ancient Egypt understood something very important about their world. The river, the soil, the sun, and the seasons were all connected. If one part of this balance changed, the entire system could suffer. Because of this, the Egyptians believed that powerful forces controlled the natural world. They believed in many gods who ruled over the sky, the earth, and the river. One of the most important gods was Ra, the god of the sun. Every morning when the sun rose above the horizon, the Egyptians believed that Ra was traveling across the sky in a great solar boat, and every evening when the sun disappeared, they believed he journeyed through the dark underworld before returning again at sunrise. For the people of Egypt, religion was not something distant or mysterious. It was part of everyday life. Temples stood in cities and towns across the land, where priests performed rituals meant to keep the balance between the gods and the human world. If the gods were pleased, the Nile would flood properly, the crops would grow, and the kingdom would remain strong. But if the gods became angry, the floods might fail and famine could spread across the land. Because of this belief, the ruler of Egypt held an incredibly important role. The ruler was known as the pharaoh. The Egyptians believed that the pharaoh was not just a king, but a living connection between humans and the gods. The pharaoh was responsible for protecting the land, maintaining order, and ensuring that the gods remained satisfied. One of the earliest rulers believed to unite the lands of Upper and Lower Egypt was Narmer. Under rulers like him, small villages and farming communities slowly became part of a powerful kingdom. Over generations, the power of the pharaohs continued to grow. They commanded large armies, controlled trade routes, and organized massive building projects across the land. But perhaps the most famous achievements of these rulers were the incredible monuments they left behind. Massive stone pyramids built to serve as tombs for the pharaohs after their deaths. Among the most famous of these monuments is the Great Pyramid of Giza. Even today, thousands of years later, it still stands as one of the greatest engineering achievements in human history. Millions of massive stone blocks were carefully cut, transported, and placed with astonishing precision. For many years, people believed these pyramids were built entirely by slaves. But historians now believe that many of the workers were actually skilled laborers and farmers working during the flooding season when their fields were underwater. These workers lived in organized communities, received food and shelter, and worked together to build the monumental structures that honored their rulers. The construction of these pyramids required planning, teamwork, and incredible determination. Yet, while the pyramids rose high above the desert sands, ordinary life continued quietly along the Nile. Farmers planted crops, children grew into adults, families gathered together each evening after long days of work, and the river continued flowing calmly through the heart of the land. As the afternoon slowly approaches, shadows begin to grow longer across the fields and villages. The intense heat of the day slowly begins to fade. Farmers prepare to return home after hours of labor. Fishermen guide their boats back toward the shore. Smoke once again begins rising from the ovens of village homes as families prepare their evening meals. Another day beside the Nile is slowly coming to an end. But the story of ancient Egypt is only just beginning. Because beyond these peaceful villages and fertile fields, powerful rulers, ambitious builders, and mysterious beliefs are shaping one of the most remarkable civilizations the world has ever known. And in the centuries ahead, the land of the Nile will witness the rise of legendary pharaohs, magnificent temples, and stories that will survive for thousands of years. As evening slowly settles across the land beside the Nile, the busy sounds of the village begin to fade. Farmers return from the fields carrying their tools. Fishermen guide their narrow boats back toward the riverbank. The golden light of the setting sun spreads across the water, turning the surface of the Nile into a shining ribbon of light. For the people of ancient Egypt, the end of the day was a time to rest, eat, and gather with family. Inside the small mud brick homes, clay ovens glow with warm fire as bread bakes slowly inside. The smell of fresh food fills the air while families sit together after long hours of work. Meals were usually simple but filling. Bread remained the most important food in Egypt. Along with it, people often ate vegetables such as onions, garlic, and beans. Fish from the Nile was common, and dates or figs sometimes provided a sweet taste after the meal. While ordinary people lived these quiet lives, the world of ancient Egypt was becoming more powerful and organized with every passing generation. Far beyond the small farming villages, large cities were growing along the Nile. These cities were centers of trade, religion, and government. At the heart of this growing civilization stood the authority of the pharaoh. The pharaoh was not seen simply as a ruler. Egyptians believed their king had divine power and was chosen by the gods to maintain balance in the world. This balance was known to the Egyptians as Ma'at. Ma'at represented harmony, truth, order, and justice. It was the idea that the universe had a natural balance that needed to be protected. The pharaoh's most important duty was to preserve this balance across the land of Egypt. If the pharaoh ruled wisely, the Nile would flood properly, crops would grow, and the kingdom would remain prosperous. But if the pharaoh failed, chaos could spread across the land. Because of this belief, the people of Egypt respected their ruler deeply. Images of the pharaoh appeared in temples, statues, carvings, and paintings throughout the kingdom. These images showed the ruler as powerful, calm, and eternal. Some of the earliest powerful kings began organizing the land into a strong centralized government. Officials were appointed to collect taxes, supervise farming, and manage large building projects. Scribes, who were among the few people able to read and write, recorded important information about crops, trade, and royal orders. Writing in ancient Egypt used a system of symbols known as hieroglyphs. These symbols could represent sounds, words, or ideas, and they were often carved into stone walls or written carefully on papyrus scrolls. Papyrus was made from a plant that grew along the Nile and became one of the earliest forms of paper. Because of writing, Egyptian leaders were able to manage a kingdom that stretched hundreds of miles along the river. But perhaps the most visible signs of the pharaoh's power were the enormous building projects that began to appear across the land. Temples, monuments, and royal tombs were constructed on a scale never seen before. These structures were not only meant to honor the gods, but also to show the strength and stability of Egypt itself. And as generations passed, these monuments became larger, more complex, and more impressive. Soon, Egyptian builders would attempt something so ambitious that it would astonish the world for thousands of years. They would begin constructing massive stone pyramids that reached toward the sky. As the morning sun climbs higher over the desert sands, the work of pyramid construction begins in full force. Skilled laborers, craftsmen, and temporary workers gather at the base of massive stone blocks. Their hands are calloused, their clothes dusty, but their determination is unwavering. Teams of workers carefully move the enormous stones using wooden sledges and ropes, sliding them across lubricated paths made slick with water. Coordinators shout instructions while scribes record the progress of construction. Every block placed brings the pyramid closer to its monumental completion. These workers live in organized villages near the construction sites. Families sometimes accompany them, while others live in communal dormitories designed to support the workforce. Food is supplied daily: bread, beer, and small portions of vegetables and fish. Work continues in shifts, with some laborers resting while others haul stones. Engineers and overseers use primitive but effective tools to measure alignment, angles, and height. Simple sighting instruments, ropes, and plumb bobs ensure that the structure rises with astonishing precision. Despite the harsh desert heat, the Egyptians demonstrate incredible endurance, working in near-perfect coordination. The sun beats down relentlessly, yet the team moves as one, aware that every misstep could damage the entire structure. The pharaoh watches closely, ensuring that the laborers follow the plan perfectly. His image is carved into the stone, a reminder to all workers of the divine authority he holds over their lives. Beyond the pyramid, the Nile continues to nourish the land. Boats carry stone and supplies along the river, connecting quarries and construction sites hundreds of miles apart. Meanwhile, in the cities, priests prepare for important temple ceremonies. They dress in fine linen and gold ornaments, performing rituals to honor the gods and ask for their blessing on the builders and the kingdom. Inside the temples, carvings and statues depict pharaohs as gods themselves, walking among humans and the divine alike. Rituals are not just religious. They reinforce the social order and remind everyone of the pharaoh's sacred role. As night falls, the workers rest, exhausted but proud. Torches line the construction site, illuminating the pyramid's growing silhouette against the starry sky. These pyramids are more than tombs. They are monuments to human ambition, ingenuity, and devotion to the gods. And as centuries pass, these structures would endure far longer than the lives of those who built them, standing as eternal symbols of ancient Egypt's power and vision. But life in Egypt is not only about pyramids. Beyond the royal projects, ordinary people cultivate fields, tend livestock, and raise families. They participate in festivals, honor the gods, and pass traditions from one generation to the next. Trade expands. Merchants journey along the Nile, bringing goods, luxury items, and ideas from distant lands. Egypt is becoming a hub of culture, wealth, and influence. Yet, despite all this growth and achievement, the Egyptians remain deeply aware of the natural world that sustains them. They carefully observe the cycles of the sun, the moon, and the stars. They track the flooding of the Nile, the migrations of birds, and the growth of crops. This awareness is woven into every aspect of their civilization. Religion, government, architecture, and daily life are all influenced by the rhythms of nature. And so, as the great pyramids rise under the scorching sun, the people of Egypt continue their quiet, resilient lives beside the ever-flowing Nile, building a civilization that will be remembered for millennia. As the pyramids cast long shadows over the desert, the focus shifts to the temples and the spiritual life that binds Egypt together. Inside massive temple walls, priests move with quiet purpose. They perform daily rituals to honor the gods, keeping the divine balance that Egyptians call Mat. Every morning, the sound of chanting echoes through stone halls, incense smoke curling upward to touch the painted ceilings adorned with stars and divine symbols. Candles flicker, hieroglyphs glow in the torchlight, and sacred melodies fill the air. These rituals are precise, passing knowledge from one generation of priests to the next. Priests are trained for decades, learning astronomy, medicine, mathematics, and the interpretation of divine texts. Their education ensures that no detail of the gods' will is lost. Priests advise the pharaoh, manage temple wealth, and oversee religious festivals. They oversee complex ceremonies involving animal offerings, ceremonial dances, and the recitation of prayers meant to secure fertility, health, and prosperity. Their authority complements the pharaoh's power, ensuring that divine law and earthly rule remain in harmony. Meanwhile, the artisans and craftsmen are at work in temple workshops. Sculptors carve statues of gods and pharaohs, painters create murals depicting mythological tales, and metal workers forge ritual tools. These creations are not mere decoration. They are imbued with religious meaning, thought to carry the essence of the gods themselves. Across the land, society thrives. Farmers grow crops that feed cities. Fishermen harvest the bountiful Nile, and merchants bring exotic goods from distant lands. Trade is vital, connecting Egypt to lands rich in gold, ivory, spices, and fine linen. Caravan routes stretch across deserts, while riverboats glide along the Nile carrying treasures and essential goods. In the bustling marketplaces, the smells of bread, fish, incense, and herbs mix. People barter, exchange news, and celebrate life's small pleasures. Despite the rigid social hierarchy, community bonds remain strong. Scribes record transactions. Artists sell figurines, and musicians play tunes that bring joy to citizens of all classes. Children play games, learn from elders, and participate in minor religious ceremonies. Women manage households, tend gardens, brew beer, and sometimes gain recognition for their skill in weaving or medicine. Families gather during festivals to honor gods, the pharaoh, or natural events like the flooding of the Nile. Seasonal festivals mark the rhythm of Egyptian life. The Opet festival, for example, celebrates the journey of gods along the Nile, featuring grand processions, music, dance, and offerings. Other festivals honor deities associated with agriculture, healing, and protection. These celebrations reinforce social cohesion and remind the people of the sacred forces that govern their world. Through all this, the pharaoh remains the symbol of stability and divine order. His image is everywhere, on coins, in carvings, and in monumental architecture. Citizens are reminded daily of his divine mandate to preserve Ma'at, the balance between humanity, nature, and the gods. As night falls, torches light pathways in cities and temples. People rest under a star-filled sky, feeling protected by the rhythm of the Nile and the unseen presence of the gods. Music and gentle chants echo from temples into the quiet streets, lulling citizens to sleep with a sense of cosmic order. And while the pyramids stand as testaments to human ambition, the temples and rituals reveal the soul of ancient Egypt's civilization deeply intertwined with the divine, nature, and society itself. In this harmony of work, faith, and governance, Egypt thrives. Its legacy will endure, remembered thousands of years later for the ingenuity, devotion, and resilience of its people. Even in the ordinary moments, children helping in gardens, merchants negotiating prices, and fishermen casting nets into the Nile, there is a reflection of the divine order. Every action, every labor, and every player contributes to the balance that sustains this remarkable civilization. Imagine standing at the edge of the Nile thousands of years ago as the first pharaohs rise to power, and the story of ancient Egypt truly begins. The rise of pharaohs. In the golden sands of Egypt, a new era begins as ambitious leaders consolidate power along the fertile banks of the Nile. The early dynasties emerge, uniting Upper and Lower Egypt under a single pharaoh, a ruler seen as both king and living god. The pharaoh's word is law, but his authority is intertwined with the gods. Every decree, every project, every monumental building is a reflection of divine will. Citizens and priests alike understand that their prosperity depends on the pharaoh maintaining harmony with Ma'at, the balance of truth, order, and justice. Construction and architecture, massive building projects dominate the landscape. Pyramids rise like mountains of stone. Tombs carved meticulously to house the pharaohs and ensure their journey into the afterlife. Skilled laborers, artisans, and engineers work together, creating architectural marvels that will endure for millennia. Every stone is carefully chosen. Every angle is precise. Hieroglyphs are inscribed to convey stories of power, devotion, and divine connection. Temples become centers of administration, education, and worship, reflecting the pharaoh's control over both spiritual and earthly domains. Trade, warfare, and diplomacy. Egypt thrives not just through agriculture but also through strategic trade. Caravans bring gold, ivory, and exotic goods from Nubia, while merchants navigate the Mediterranean and Red Sea routes. Diplomacy ensures alliances with neighboring legions, yet Egypt's expansion is not without conflict. Battles are fought to secure resources, borders, and tribute from subordinate territories. The military Egyptian armies, organized and disciplined, are a mix of infantry, charioteers, and archers. Soldiers train relentlessly, learning to defend their lands and project the pharaoh's power. Even in times of peace, they patrol borders and rivers, ensuring the kingdom remains secure and its people protected. Daily life in society. While kings and soldiers shape the external world, daily life flourishes along the Nile. Farmers work tirelessly to harness the river's annual flood, planting wheat, barley, and flax. Artisans craft jewelry, pottery, and textiles, while scribes record accounts, laws, and stories. In homes and marketplaces, ordinary Egyptians experience a rhythm guided by nature, religion, and community. Festivals punctuate the year, honoring gods, the pharaoh, and seasonal cycles. Music, dance, and feasting provide joy even as citizens carry out the duties demanded by their society. Religion and belief. Religion permeates every aspect of life. Temples dedicated to gods like Ra, Isis, Osiris, and Anubis dominate the skyline. Priests interpret omens, guide rituals, and maintain sacred knowledge. Ordinary citizens participate in festivals, offer prayers, and seek blessings for health, fertility, and protection. The pharaoh, believed to be divine, embodies the connection between humanity and the gods. His actions sustain Maat, and in turn, the people's well-being depends on his rule. Legacy of the early dynasties. The first pharaohs and their dynasties established systems of governance, religious practice, and cultural expression that will influence Egypt for centuries. Temples, tombs, and monuments serve as enduring symbols of their reign. As the sun sets over the Nile, casting golden light across the fertile plains, the civilization continues to grow. The foundations of Egypt's grandeur, its culture, and its unshakable link between the mortal and the divine have been firmly laid. In this age of kings, architects, soldiers, and farmers, the story of ancient Egypt moves forward, each generation building upon the achievements of the last, crafting a civilization that will echo through history. The flourishing of civilization. As centuries pass, Egypt reaches new heights of culture, technology, and governance. The pharaoh's power solidifies, and monumental architecture becomes even more ambitious. Massive temples like Karnak and Luxor rise along the Nile, adorned with intricate hieroglyphs, statues, and reliefs depicting gods, pharaohs, and mythological stories. The Nile remains the lifeblood of the civilization. Its annual flooding deposits rich silt, enabling farmers to cultivate vast fields of wheat, barley, flax, and papyrus. Communities plan their lives around the river's rhythm, from planting and harvesting to religious ceremonies and festivals. Social structure and daily life. Egyptian society is organized into strict hierarchies. At the top stands the pharaoh, the living embodiment of divine authority. Below him are high priests, nobles, and officials who manage the administration, collect taxes, and oversee the temples. Scribes play a crucial role, recording transactions, laws, and cultural stories, ensuring continuity of knowledge. Artisans, craftsmen, and builders form the backbone of daily life. They construct temples, carve statues, create jewelry, and produce textiles. Their work reflects both practical needs and spiritual devotion, with art serving as a bridge between humanity and the divine. Farmers and laborers sustain the economy. They work tirelessly along the Nile, cultivating crops and raising livestock. Fishing provides additional sustenance, while artisans and merchants trade goods, connecting Egypt to distant lands like Nubia, the Levant, and the Mediterranean. Religion and culture. Religion permeates every aspect of Egyptian life. Temples and shrines dot the landscape, with priests performing elaborate daily rituals to honor gods like Ra, Isis, Osiris, and Anubis. Offerings of food, incense, and crafted items maintain divine favor, ensuring prosperity, health, and protection. Festivals mark important events, blending religious observance with social gatherings. The Opet Festival, the Feast of Valley, and celebrations of the Nile's inundation bring communities together in music, dance, and feasting. Children participate, learning the traditions and stories of their ancestors, while women manage households, gardens, and craft production. Innovation and knowledge. Egyptians make remarkable advancements in mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and engineering. Architects design complex structures with precise alignments, while astronomers track celestial movements to predict seasonal changes. Medical knowledge, based on observation and spiritual beliefs, helps heal ailments and maintain public health. Scribes and scholars preserve knowledge, recording it on papyrus scrolls that travel along trade routes. Libraries and temple archives become centers of learning, ensuring that the wisdom of past generations informs the present. Military and defense. Though Egypt enjoys long periods of stability, threats from neighboring regions require a strong military. Armies consist of infantry, archers, and charioteers trained in tactics and discipline. Fortresses along borders protect trade routes, while patrols guard cities and agricultural lands. Military campaigns expand Egypt's influence, securing tribute, resources, and strategic territories. Every Egyptian, from soldier to farmer, understands their role in maintaining the kingdom's balance and prosperity. The pharaoh's authority is a guiding force, but it is the collective effort of society that sustains Egypt through generations. Art, architecture, and legacy. The civilization's artistic achievements endure beyond its borders. Tombs, temples, sculptures, and murals convey the story of gods, pharaohs, and daily life with remarkable detail. Hieroglyphs immortalize events, beliefs, and rituals, connecting the past to the present. Even ordinary life is documented. Farmers' work, merchants' trades, and artisans' creations reflect the harmony between the natural world, divine influence, and human ingenuity. Music, poetry, and storytelling enrich the culture, creating a society that values both spiritual devotion and human expression. As the sun sets over the Nile, casting golden and crimson light across the city, life continues in steady rhythm. Egypt thrives through agriculture, trade, governance, and devotion. Its legacy becomes eternal, a civilization of order, innovation, faith, and artistry that will captivate humanity for millennia to come. Through dynasties, challenges, and triumphs, ancient Egypt remains a model of balance between power and responsibility, labor and leisure, the mortal and the divine. Its story is one of continuity, resilience, and the enduring pursuit of harmony across generations. The height of empire. By the Middle Kingdom, Egypt's power and influence have reached remarkable heights. The pharaohs command vast territories, and the nation flourishes under centralized governance. Cities expand along the Nile, fortified and thriving with trade, markets, and temples. Royal courts bustle with officials, advisors, and scribes managing administration, diplomacy, and taxation. Laws are codified. Justice is delivered, and Mahat, the principle of balance and order, is maintained throughout the land. Citizens understand their duties, and the pharaoh's authority is reinforced through both divine reverence and practical governance. Architecture and monuments. Architectural marvels continue to define Egypt's landscape. Temples grow larger and more ornate, adorned with intricate carvings of gods, kings, and mythological scenes. The Valley of the Kings becomes the final resting place for pharaohs, with tombs filled with treasures, inscriptions, and protective spells meant to guide the dead safely to the afterlife. Obelisks pierce the skyline, carved from single blocks of stone and inscribed with hieroglyphs celebrating divine kingship. Pyramids, though less common than in the Old Kingdom, remain a symbol of enduring power and architectural mastery. Science, learning, and innovation knowledge thrives across fields. Egyptian astronomers map the heavens to predict seasonal changes, aiding agriculture and religious observances. Mathematicians refine calculations essential for building massive structures, while physicians apply advanced techniques in healing and surgery. Papyrus scrolls preserve medical texts, mathematical formulas, religious rituals, and historical chronicles. Temples become centers of learning, where scribes, scholars, and priests pass knowledge across generations. This intellectual legacy ensures that Egypt's wisdom endures for millennia. Trade and diplomacy trade networks expand farther than ever. Caravans journey to Nubia, Punt, and the Levant, bringing gold, incense, exotic animals, and luxury goods. Merchant ships traverse the Mediterranean, connecting Egypt to distant lands and cultures. Diplomacy secures alliances and mediates conflicts, projecting Egypt's influence beyond its borders. The military and protection. A well-trained and disciplined military safeguards Egypt's interests. Infantry, archers, and charioteers patrol borders, defend cities, and enforce the pharaoh's rule. Fortresses along strategic points protect trade routes and agricultural lands. During campaigns, armies ensure Egypt's dominance, collect tribute, and secure resources necessary for the kingdom's continued prosperity. Daily life and society alongside the grandeur of kings and temples. Ordinary Egyptians continue their daily routines. Farmers work the Nile's fertile banks, sowing crops and harvesting grains to feed the growing population. Artisans craft jewelry, pottery, furniture, and clothing, while merchants facilitate trade locally and abroad. Families gather for meals, celebrate festivals, and honor ancestors and gods through rituals. Music, dance, and storytelling enrich social life, while education in temples and households ensures that children learn the traditions, skills, and values of their culture. Religion and spirituality. Religion remains central to Egyptian life. Temples dedicated to Ra, Isis, Osiris, Horus, and Anubis host elaborate ceremonies. Priests maintain sacred spaces, interpret omens, and guide both rulers and citizens in proper rituals. Offerings and prayers seek favor, protection, and blessings for health, prosperity, and fertility. Pharaohs continue to act as divine intermediaries, ensuring math and reinforcing their authority. Festivals, processions, and sacred rites unite communities in shared devotion, bridging mortal life with the spiritual realm. Challenges and resilience. Despite prosperity, Egypt faces challenges. Droughts, Nile fluctuations, and threats from neighboring powers test the kingdom's stability. Yet, the social structure, centralized governance, and deep cultural cohesion allow Egypt to endure. Administrative reforms, military campaigns, and religious devotion help maintain balance and order. Legacy and influence. By this era, Egypt's culture, knowledge, and art have left a lasting imprint. Monuments, temples, and tombs record history in stone. Religious beliefs and practices shape societal values. Scientific achievements guide future generations. The civilization's story demonstrates resilience, creativity, and the power of human ingenuity. Through the vision of pharaohs, the labor of citizens, and devotion to gods, Egypt cements a legacy that will inspire countless generations across continents and centuries. As the sun sets once more over the Nile, its golden reflection reminds the world of a civilization that mastered both nature and culture. crafting a society where order, spirituality, and human endeavor converge to create an enduring empire. The dawn of new dynasties. After centuries of growth and achievement, Egypt faces periods of transition and upheaval. Dynasties rise and fall, each bringing changes in governance, culture, and ambition. The pharaohs of the new kingdom emerge, determined to leave their mark on history with monumental constructions, military campaigns, and religious innovations. The Nile continues to dictate life. Farmers, laborers, and artisans align their work with its seasonal rhythms. Floods bring fertile soil, sustaining agriculture and the growing population. Villages and towns thrive along the riverbanks, where daily life blends labor, worship, and celebration. Pharaohs and power. The new kingdom's rulers, including iconic figures such as Hatshepsut, Thutmose III, and Ramses II, project unmatched authority. They command armies, oversee monumental building projects, and reinforce Egypt's influence abroad. Court officials and scribes ensure that the administration runs smoothly, taxes are collected, and justice is delivered. The pharaoh's word is law, but it is also intertwined with religious authority. As living gods, these rulers embody Ma'at balance, harmony, and cosmic order, ensuring that Egypt prospers under divine guidance. Military expansion and diplomacy. Egypt's armies grow stronger and more sophisticated. Chariots, archers, and infantry units are trained in complex tactics, ensuring dominance on the battlefield. Campaigns extend Egypt's borders, securing tribute, resources, and strategic territories. Diplomacy flourishes alongside military power. Egypt establishes alliances, negotiates trade agreements, and maintains influence with neighboring nations such as Nubia, Kush, and the Hittites. Ambassadors and envoys travel long distances, ensuring Egypt's voice is heard and respected. Trade and economy. The new kingdom sees unprecedented prosperity through trade. Gold, ivory, incense, and exotic goods flow along established routes. Merchants navigate the Mediterranean and Red Sea, connecting Egypt with civilizations as far as Mesopotamia and the Levant. Economy thrives on agriculture, craft production, and trade. Artisans create jewelry, pottery, textiles, and sculptures, reflecting both functional needs and spiritual devotion. The labor of countless individuals, from farmers to builders, sustains the empire's wealth and grandeur. Religion and spiritual life. Religious life remains central. Temples expand in size and opulence, with elaborate rituals performed daily by priests. Gods like Amun-Ra, Isis, Osiris, and Anubis dominate spiritual practice. Offerings, prayers, and festivals ensure divine favor, while pharaohs reinforce their godlike status. Festivals, processions, and rituals unite communities, blending devotion with social cohesion. Music, dance, and storytelling animate daily life, teaching children traditions, values, and the tales of gods and kings. Art, architecture, and innovation. Architecture feats reach new heights. Temples, monuments, and obelisks demonstrate engineering mastery. Colossal statues and intricately decorated tombs immortalize rulers and nobility. Hieroglyphs record historical events, religious texts, and literary works, preserving Egypt's culture for future generations. Artistic and scientific achievements advance simultaneously. Astronomy, medicine, and mathematics guide practical and ceremonial life. Observatories track celestial events. Physicians apply advanced medical knowledge. Architects design enduring structures with precise alignment and proportions. Challenges and resilience. Despite its grandeur, the new kingdom faces challenges. Invasions, internal revolts, and natural disasters threaten stability, yet the centralized authority, religious devotion, and social cohesion allow Egypt to endure. Leaders implement reforms, strengthen military and administrative systems, and maintain prosperity. Every Egyptian, from ruler to laborer, contributes to maintaining balance, through work, devotion, and obedience. Life continues, resilient against the tides of change and uncertainty. Legacy of the New Kingdom. By the end of this period, Egypt has solidified its status as a cultural and political powerhouse. Its architecture, art, and written records influence civilizations for centuries. Temples, tombs, and monuments stand as eternal witnesses to human ingenuity, devotion, and ambition. From the daily lives of farmers and architects, as the centuries move forward, the land of Egypt begins to experience deeper transformations than ever before. The world beyond the Nile is changing rapidly, and powerful empires are rising across the surrounding regions. For thousands of years, Egypt had stood as one of the most stable and powerful civilizations on earth. Its rulers commanded great armies, its temples dominated the skyline, and its culture influenced lands far beyond the desert borders. But history is never still. New forces begin to appear along the edges of the Egyptian world. Foreign kingdoms grow stronger. Trade routes become more competitive. Political alliances shift constantly. The rulers of Egypt must now navigate a far more complicated international landscape than their ancestors ever faced. Despite these changes, life along the Nile continues to follow familiar rhythms. Farmers still wake before sunrise to tend their crops. The fertile soil left behind by the annual flooding of the Nile continues to sustain millions of people. Wheat and barley fields stretch across the river banks, and the sound of farmers working the land fills the morning air. Fishing boats glide across the calm water, just as they have done for centuries. Nets are cast into the river, and the daily catch helps feed families throughout the villages and cities. Markets remain lively places filled with color and sound. Merchants sell pottery, woven linen, jewelry, and carved figurines. Traders arriving from distant regions bring exotic goods such as spices, incense, rare woods, and precious stones. These markets serve as meeting places where stories, news, and ideas travel across the kingdom. Meanwhile, temples continue to operate as both spiritual and economic centers of Egyptian society. Priests maintain daily rituals dedicated to powerful gods such as Amun, Osiris, Isis, and Horus. Inside the great temple complexes, sacred statues are washed, dressed in fine garments, and presented with offerings of food and incense. The belief that the gods actively influence the world remains deeply rooted in Egyptian life. For ordinary people, these rituals provide comfort and stability during uncertain times. However, political power within Egypt is slowly becoming more fragmented. Regional leaders and governors begin to gain influence in different parts of the kingdom. Some control important agricultural lands, while others command military forces responsible for defending key trade routes. Pharaohs still hold symbolic authority as divine rulers, but maintaining direct control over every region becomes increasingly difficult. As a result, periods of political tension sometimes arise between the central government and local powers. Foreign influence also begins to shape the political environment of Egypt. Neighboring civilizations seek alliances, trade agreements, and sometimes military advantage within the region. Diplomats and envoys travel between royal courts, carrying messages, gifts, and negotiations intended to preserve stability. At times, Egypt must defend itself against invasion. Armies are mobilized to protect borders and maintain control over strategic territories. Fortified cities and defensive outposts become important elements of national security. Egyptian soldiers continue to train with bows, spears, shields, and chariots. Their discipline and organization remain respected throughout the ancient world. Yet the true strength of Egypt still lies not only in its military, but in the resilience of its society. Families continue to raise children, teach traditions, and maintain cultural practices passed down through generations. Artisans still carve statues and paint murals that decorate temples and tombs. Scribes continue recording history on papyrus scrolls, documenting events that future generations will study thousands of years later. Artists create detailed wall paintings showing scenes of farming, fishing, hunting, and religious ceremonies. These artworks preserve everyday life with remarkable clarity. Even during times of political change, Egyptian culture remains incredibly strong. The belief in the afterlife continues to shape burial practices. Tombs are carefully prepared with food, tools, jewelry, and written spells intended to guide the deceased safely through the spiritual world. Funerary texts, sometimes known as the Book of the Dead, contain prayers and instructions designed to help souls navigate the challenges of the afterlife. For Egyptians, death is not seen as an ending. It is simply another stage of existence. This belief gives people a powerful sense of continuity and meaning in their lives. While rulers and dynasties may change, the deeper cultural foundations of Egyptian civilization remain remarkably stable. The Nile still flows steadily from south to north. The sun still rises over the desert every morning, and the people of Egypt continue their daily work beneath the same sky their ancestors watched thousands of years before them. Yet the world beyond Egypt continues evolving. Powerful empires rise across the Mediterranean and Near East. New technologies, military strategies, and political systems spread across regions that once seemed distant. Eventually, these global shifts will reshape the balance of power across the ancient world. But even as new civilizations emerge, the legacy of Egypt remains impossible to ignore. Its monuments still stand towering above the desert sands. Its knowledge of architecture, astronomy, and medicine continues influencing scholars and leaders far beyond the Nile Valley. And its stories of gods, pharaohs, builders, and ordinary people continue to inspire curiosity and fascination thousands of years later. As evening settles across the Nile once again, the golden light of the setting sun reflects off temple walls and quiet river waters. The land of Egypt rests after another long day of work, prayer, and life. And although the future will bring many changes, the spirit of this ancient civilization remains deeply woven into the history of humanity itself. As the centuries slowly pass, the world around Egypt continues to change. New kingdoms rise across the Mediterranean and the Near East, bringing fresh ideas, technologies, and ambitions that reshape the balance of power. For thousands of years, Egypt had stood as one of the most stable civilizations in human history. The Nile had nourished its fields, pharaohs had commanded vast building projects, and temples had guided spiritual life across the land. But no civilization remains unchanged forever. Gradually, foreign powers begin to take greater interest in the rich and fertile lands along the Nile. Merchants, diplomats, and travelers arrive from distant regions, bringing goods, stories, and cultural influences that blend with the traditions of Egypt. Some come peacefully through trade and diplomacy. Others arrive with armies. Among the most powerful of these outside forces are the Persians, whose empire expands across vast territories of the ancient world. Their rulers eventually bring Egypt under their control for a period of time. Even under foreign rule, daily life for many Egyptians continues in familiar ways. Farmers still cultivate wheat and barley in the fertile floodplains of the Nile. Fishermen continue casting nets into the calm waters of the river. Markets remain lively with merchants selling pottery, woven linen, and fragrant oils. Temples still stand tall across the cities and villages. Priests continue performing rituals for the gods, lighting incense and presenting offerings in sacred chambers filled with carved hieroglyphs. For ordinary people, these traditions provide comfort and stability even when political leadership changes. Then, in the 4th century BCE, a new figure appears who would dramatically reshape the ancient world. A young Macedonian king named Akhara I. Akhara I leads his army across vast regions of Asia and the Middle East. When his forces reach Egypt, the Persian rulers lose control of the land. Rather than resisting him, many Egyptians welcome Alexander as a liberator. Alexander recognizes the importance of Egypt's culture and religion. He visits temples, honors Egyptian gods, and presents himself as a rightful pharaoh in the traditions of the land. During his time in Egypt, he orders the construction of a new city along the Mediterranean coast. This city becomes one of the greatest centers of learning and culture in the ancient world. It is called Shentuske. Alexandria quickly grows into a thriving port filled with scholars, merchants, and travelers from many different cultures. At the heart of the city stands one of the most famous centers of knowledge ever created, the Great Library of Alexandria. Inside its halls, thousands of scrolls contain writings on science, philosophy, mathematics, medicine, and history. Scholars gather from across the known world to study and exchange ideas. For a time, Egypt becomes a bridge between many civilizations. Greek, Egyptian, and other cultures blend together, creating a vibrant and diverse society. After Alexander's death, Egypt comes under the rule of a Greek dynasty known as the Ptolemies. These rulers adopt many Egyptian traditions while also bringing influences from Greek culture. Temples continue to be built, trade continues to flourish, and the Nile continues to provide life to the land just as it always has. One of the most famous rulers of this later era is Eke. Cleopatra becomes known not only for her intelligence and political skill, but also for her efforts to protect Egypt's independence during a time of growing Roman power. She forms alliances with powerful Roman leaders and works to strengthen Egypt's position in the changing political landscape of the Mediterranean world. But the expansion of the Roman Republic eventually reaches the shores of Egypt. After years of conflict and political struggle, Egypt becomes part of the Roman Empire. With this change, the long era of independent pharaohs finally comes to an end. Yet, even as political control shifts, the legacy of Egypt remains powerful. The temples still stand, the pyramids still rise above the desert sands, and the stories carved into stone continue to speak across the centuries. As the sun sets over the Nile once more, its golden light reflects off ancient monuments that have watched thousands of years pass. Empires have risen and fallen. Kings and queens have ruled and disappeared into history. But the spirit of Egypt, shaped by the river, the desert, and the people who call this land home, continues to echo through time. As the centuries continue to move forward, Egypt slowly becomes part of a much larger world shaped by powerful empires and expanding trade networks. Under Roman rule, the land along the Nile remains incredibly valuable. Its fertile fields continue producing vast supplies of grain that feed cities across the Mediterranean world. Ships loaded with wheat travel from Egyptian ports to distant lands, carrying the harvest of the Nile to millions of people. But even as political control changes, the deeper identity of Egypt remains firmly rooted in its ancient traditions. The temples still stand beside the river. Priests still perform rituals that have been practiced for generations. Farmers still wake before sunrise to tend their fields, guided by the same seasonal rhythms that shaped life in Egypt thousands of years earlier. And towering above the desert sands, the pyramids continue watching silently over the land. Among them, the most famous remains the at AR-1. Built more than 4,000 years ago, this monument still stands as one of the greatest engineering achievements in human history. Massive stone blocks, carefully placed with astonishing precision, rise toward the sky just as they did in the age of the pharaohs. Travelers from distant lands arrive to see these wonders for themselves. They walk across the desert sands, gazing upward at structures so large and mysterious that they seem almost impossible to build. Many wonder how such incredible monuments were created with the tools and knowledge of the ancient world. Yet the pyramids are only one part of Egypt's extraordinary legacy. Across temples, tombs, and monuments, hieroglyphs continue telling stories carved into stone. These symbols preserve the voices of people who lived thousands of years ago. They speak of kings and queens, of farmers and craftsmen, of priests who honored the gods and scribes who recorded the events of their time. For centuries, these writings remain a mystery to the outside world. Then, many centuries later, scholars finally unlock the meaning of hieroglyphs through the discovery of the Aka-Etwan Desikov, Etwan. This remarkable artifact contains the same text written in multiple scripts, allowing historians to understand the language of ancient Egypt once again. With this breakthrough, the voices of the past begin to speak clearly after thousands of years of silence. Historians and archaeologists start uncovering tombs, temples, and lost cities buried beneath desert sands. Each discovery reveals new details about the daily lives, beliefs, and achievements of this incredible civilization. Today, the story of Egypt continues to fascinate people all around the world. Visitors travel to stand beside the pyramids. Scholars study ancient texts preserved on fragile papyrus scrolls, and museums display statues, jewelry, and tools created by skilled artisans thousands of years ago. All of these discoveries remind us of the remarkable people who once lived along the banks of the Nile. People who built temples that touched the sky. People who believed deeply in the balance of nature, the power of the gods, and the promise of life beyond death. People who created a civilization so strong that its memory still shapes our understanding of history today. And through it all, the Nile continues its quiet journey, flowing steadily through the heart of Egypt, just as it has for countless generations. The same river that nourished ancient farms, carried merchant ships, and reflected the golden light of the desert sun. Even now, when night falls across the desert, the pyramids remain standing beneath the stars, silent witnesses to thousands of years of human history. Their shadows stretch across the sands as the cool desert wind moves gently across the land. And somewhere beyond the quiet riverbanks and ancient monuments, the long story of Egypt slowly fades into the calm silence of the night. A civilization remembered not only for its power and monuments, but for the people, the traditions, and the timeless rhythm of life along the Nile. Before you drift completely into sleep, remember that history is full of mysteries still waiting to be discovered. The stories of ancient Egypt, the silent pyramids, and the endless sands of the desert remind us that the past never truly disappears. If you enjoy calm history stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel Kreenot 4. Here we explore ancient civilizations, forgotten empires, and relaxing history stories designed to help you learn, relax, and fall asleep peacefully. So close your eyes, relax, and let history guide your dreams. And I'll see you in the next story on Kreenot 4.